Now, I'm going to tell you guys a little story that happened a few years ago. And I was at a Christmas party, and it was one of those multi-generational Christmas parties. So my parents' friends are there. They're having a good time. There's a bunch of people my age as well, and some of which, well, they brought their kids along too. And somehow, some way, I got wrapped up in this conversation with an 8-year-old kid, and he's showing me his book about dinosaurs. And I swear to you, he's got this entire thing memorized from cover to cover. He's telling me all sorts of stories about how the Triceratops has defense mechanisms against the T-Rex. He's telling me how much they weigh. The kid even knows how to spell the pterodactyl right there. And I got a little confession to make. I mean, partway through this conversation, I start daydreaming. I got my exit plan, like how am I going to end this conversation? Because I want to get back to the party itself. But the other half of my brain, the teacher part of my brain, I was kind of into this. And I'm starting to wonder, why is this kid so engaged with learning? And suddenly, I'm the one that's captivated. Not about the dinosaurs themselves, but I'm captivated about what's going on in this kid's brain. Because I thought I knew what motivated young people. I spend all day with 17-year-olds. They give me stories like, "Sir, I really want to get into this university," or "I need a particular mark for that award or scholarship," or "Sir, what can I do extra credit because I'm afraid to let down my parents?" But clearly, none of these three things were happening with this little kid because he's not thinking about scholarships and he's not thinking about universities. So what is it? Am I talking to some freak genius child right here whose IQ resides down on the outskirts of the distribution chart? I don't think so. Nothing about this story is unique because you've all met a kid kind of like that before. Heck, I was a kid kind of like that. Go back to the 1980s, I'd go on and on and on about the NHL. I'd give you lists of Stanley Cup winners and statistics galore. And then it evolved into Legos for a little bit. I couldn't wait for Christmas morning. Give me the most challenging one, and meticulously, I'm putting these things together piece by piece so it looked exactly the way it did on the box. And then I would tear the whole thing apart to rebuild something else that was new, creative, distinctly my own. And I even had a phase about chemistry and the safest way to store chemicals, making posters and telling anybody willing to listen what was going on there. So think back in your minds. You probably have some sort of nostalgic moment as well, where you really have a positive memory connected to your own learning. And that's because humans, well, this is part of our DNA. It's woven right into who we are. We are naturally curious. We're biologically driven towards novelty. That's why we love to explore, why we love to travel. Because the dopamine reward systems that kick off in our brains when we learn something new, it feels good. So I needed to know, well, how can I get the maximum level of engagement out of my students? And how can I make them feel like that 8-year-old, just craving new information about dinosaurs? So, I had seen engaged moments in my class many times, but I was also haunted by the reality that I simply was not connecting with 100% of the students 100% of the time. So I needed to do some research. And I gave it a bunch of surveys at the start of classes, at the end of the semester with the exam. I'd even talked to many students years after they left my class because I needed to know, what does your learning look like when it is voluntary and outside of the classroom? And how do educators create an environment for this to happen? And finally, well, what is the role of the classroom teacher in a day and age where Google is out there all the time? So I'm going to tell you some of the things that the kids never say in these responses. They don't like the essays and the lectures, and they don't like activities where they have to stay glued to the seats for the whole 75 minutes. They don't like memorizing, and they don't like those Scantron bubble sheets either. Now, they are necessary tools in the educational process, but they alone are simply not enough to inspire top-notch work, nor do they instill a sense of purpose in our learners. The activities that kids want to see will challenge them to design their own futures. They want to know how they will stack up against the best learners from other schools. They want opportunities to meet interesting people, to be covered in the media, and naturally as a business teacher, well, they want to know how to make a lot of money. And now that I knew sort of this secret code of what motivated young kids, I decided that every single thing I did had to revolve around their deepest motivators. But I also needed to keep a keen eye to the outside to see what the best teachers in the world were already doing. And the more teachers I interacted with and the more workshops that I attended, the better and better I felt about the state of our profession. So for the rest of this talk, I will tell you why we have indeed entered the golden age of learning. It is one characterized by universal access to information, emerging global communities, new opportunities for risk and challenge, along with achievement now being a form of social currency. And it's being supported from all walks of life. We're seeing great programs being designed by the province and school boards, great work from our community partners, post-secondary institutions, and the best part is many of the student ideas themselves are bringing us to that point. You know, I've heard many talks over the years that have said things kind of like, education is broken, or that schools kill creativity. And although that may have been true when those words were first spoken, I do believe that we have hit that tipping point where we as educators finally have the tools and the platforms to make our classrooms innovative to answer the problems of tomorrow. So these top-down projects include some of the following. The Speak Up grants come from the province of Ontario, and this gives money to kids who see opportunities to make their communities better. Melody Salehi's moment was born in the middle of an English class in 2017. She heard about the struggles of the Indigenous Canadian population. And this student of Iranian descent felt a kinship with their plight. She decided that she needed to do something about it because awareness was important, but advocacy was needed. So Melody's business plan helped her land a $2,500 grant, but she knew that this was not merely a $2,500 problem. So she went out, canvassed the University of Windsor, St. Clair College, community centers, grocery stores for donations, and proceeded to more than triple that donation within a mere matter of weeks. Melody created the event called Celebrating Our Resiliency, which promoted health, education, and career development for the Indigenous Canadians. And provincial grants also come in the form of Summer Company, when young entrepreneurs can receive $3,000 to bring their ideas to life. Students can experience the exhilarating upside of business success without the financial risk or academic risk of failure. So here's a quick story about 3 kids, all in grade 10, all in the exact same class, who are all photographers. They all applied for the grant and got it. And then they came to me and said, "Sir, are we going to have to compete against each other?" And there was a real fear that none of them would be profitable. But I said, well, what is that other thing you're really into? What is your other dinosaur kind of moment? And luckily, all 3 of them splintered off different directions and thrived. David Hayo is into fashion, and now his photography has clients in Denmark, Germany, California, and Canada. Evan Piakowski, his specialty is in family portraits, real estate photography, and sports photography. Whereas Keegan Morgan, his specialty is in the auto sector. He has been hired by CBC to be their youth consultant and also by Mercedes-Benz, seen here with their CEO, Brian Fulton. Programs like Summer Company, they help unleash the talents that are already within our youth. Make Your Pitch is another one, funded by the Ministry of Economic Development. Students like Zahim Riberty have actually been through both of these programs. And I love Zahim's story, not because he made $10,000 in his first 8 weeks of opening up, and not because he got 55% in grade 11 business and jumped it all the way to 93% in grade 12 university business. No. I love it because it's a story of character development and an individual who had a new sense of self. It also is proof that these programs are working and we are in the golden age of education. Students often produce the very best work when they feel a connection to a cause. Here we see Jagger Ford Klein. He used Make Your Pitch as well as his way of keeping alive the memory of his mentor, Ryan Barron, who was tragically killed in a hit-and-run accident. Jagger's dinosaur moment was selfless in nature, and he has since blossomed into a community leader, helping fill the void created when we lost Ryan. And board-organized programs are really working well too. The Youth G7 Summit, where students from Italy and Canada spent 2 weeks together discussing major issues such as our natural resources, diplomacy, and digital warfare from the perspective of 7 different nation states, give kids a perspective far beyond their own communities. One kid said this was his favorite memory of 2018, not his favorite school memory, his favorite life memory, and proclaimed that there is no substitute for a great experience. And who do you suppose was responsible for all of that photography in this 2-week program? Well, you guessed it, it was those same photographers that you were introduced to a moment ago. And support from institutions of higher learning now allows students to take their muse and work directly with accomplished grad students and professors at the top of their field. Hackathon competitions in computer science promote problem solving, whereas Science Olympiad develops curiosity and a method of inquiry to seek solutions. When Fahd Karimian and Mike Olette founded the Odette High School Leadership Initiative, they were intent on developing business leaders through case study competitions. Over 1,300 students have graduated from this program since 2013. And my favorite success story is from Dico Angelo. We see him here in 2014 after winning first place in a case study competition. But nevertheless, it was evident that Dico was a visionary that wanted so much more. So later he joined OLI, ascended to a position of leadership there. But this was merely a stepping stone for him, as now Dico is on the cusp of receiving a massive grant that is going to help at-risk Black youth in Windsor's downtown core with resources, training, and mentorship that will lead to educational and employment opportunities. His dinosaur is coming to life, thanks in large part to these innovative educational pathways. And robotics competitions are being sponsored by the universities too. Here we see the Amazon Warriors, an all-girls robotics team at the 2018 World Championships. And if a picture is worth 1,000 words, Mackenzie Suliak's eyes remind us that these programs work while cultivating awe and inspiration. The Downtown Windsor Business Accelerator hosts an annual entrepreneurship summit where students interact directly with local business leaders. And Hackforge always has its doors open for budding computer science talent like Matt Barrichello. Kids are eager to volunteer. They want to be there to have exciting people next to them and networking opportunities overall. Evan Tanovich's dinosaur moment manifested itself in the form of politics and making our communities better for all. Some kids look up to the athletes and the rock stars, but for Evan, it's our local politicians. Now, he doesn't know I'm using this next photo, but this is him from Halloween a couple years ago. Evan decided to join the debate team to prepare for his dream in politics and enjoyed several accolades along the way, which culminated in the 2017 Confederation Cup in Ottawa. But my proudest moment for Evan is not at the provincial stage in Toronto, nor was it the national championships in Ottawa. It was in a more humble setting, in his very own library at school. You see, the 2018 provincial election was coming up, and he had an innovative idea that he wanted to bring together students who had different political philosophies so they could represent each of the 4 major parties. He was not interested in merely preaching his own ideologies. Rather, he wanted to create a platform for all these voices to be heard. He wanted to shine a bright light on the issues themselves, seeking truth and not ideology in the process. It's really a lesson that us adults must embrace in this day and age of tribalism and echo chambers. And the amazing part of this, the whole thing happened without any teacher involvement in the planning or in the execution stage. You know, a moment like this can only be born when a kid has that dinosaur moment. It can't be born through a mandate. So as educators, it is up to us to build a culture for students to take risks when they are in the pursuit of excellence. So who's got that next idea? Maybe it's Najwa Kabani right here. She's in grade 11 in Canada, moving back to her native Lebanon in a few weeks. Her vision is to build an international global classroom. Once upon a time, a student's best work was shared with only their teacher and their parents. But today, literacy skills are flourishing like never before. Under the tutelage of a great educator, students can share their best work across the planet. Chidera here authored an award-winning play based on the Nigerian Civil War that her grandparents lived through. With the Globe as her stage, she has since been published 3 additional times in magazines in both Canada and overseas. Achievement now, it is the new social currency. Instagram pages are completely full of moments where kids are successful. And those archaic stereotypes like intelligence equals nerdiness, that is long gone. Achievers like Elon Musk and Richard Branson are now celebrities. And even the pop culture icons like those Kardashians, they are desperate to convince us that they are intelligent learners as well. So achievement is now the cool thing to do. Kids want those awards. They want opportunities to bring those dinosaur moments to life. And thank goodness that they are motivated to succeed. Because like Josh Jekyll knows, the answer to tomorrow's problems are not contained in yesterday's textbooks. Now, I am well aware that I am no longer the sole gatekeeper of information. So the role of the teacher is now to be like Mo Bottas, who takes his students to the middle of the jungle in Costa Rica, where his classroom is alive both metaphorically and literally. It is to be Diane Nematella, whose students leave high school with all of the skills and certifications necessary to thrive in the workplace. It is to be the Kyle Pierce, who runs an educational podcast so that teachers have a platform for sharing their best ideas. Or to be the Anya Grabka, whose annual multicultural festival allows students to proudly display their cuisine, dance, music, and culture. It is to be the Brian Zanier, whose school band plays in all sorts of different novel settings, from hockey games to guest appearances and music videos. So imagine for a moment where teachers could all be like this, where all students in all pathways from all walks of life and from all corners of the planet can be in these classrooms. Well, I'm here today to tell you that it is possible, and it is happening right now. I think we're going to look back in about 100 years and see this as the era where the education system got it right. And this was the time that we were able to fully unleash the total power contained within our human minds. So it begs the question, will us teachers have enough energy to keep up with all these students and all their blossoming new ideas? I think we will. Because, well, education, that's our dinosaur. And that is exactly what we want to talk about at the Christmas parties. So I want you all to remember, especially people who are not in a traditional classroom, that you are all teachers as well. From Leo, the baseball coach, who teaches life lessons on the diamond, to Dean, the chiropractor that preaches about individual health and wellness. It's Sherry Lynn, who knows how to develop new young leaders. And it is Anna, the nurse, who is reassuring new mothers that they too can succeed in parenthood. So take a moment right now to appreciate the beautiful fact that we are living through a time unlike any other. So embrace your identity as a teacher, and then come tell me about it at that next Christmas party. Thank you.